So, hello, Seth with Tycon Systems. Want to give a kind of a brief overview of Tycon and the product offerings that we have. Tycon Systems started in 2008. Our president and owner, Scott Parsons, had been looking at different products over the years and thinking about ways to get power to remote locations. So we started with our RemotePro systems. I'm going to spend quite a bit of time on that to describe what we can do and offer. As he started with the solar products, we expanded into POA Injectors, wireless, and so we have three main brands that we offer. We have our Tycon Solar, which will be our RemotePro, UPSPro, which is our battery bank, solar kits, and all of the accessories that go with that, including our trailer. Tycon Wireless, I'll spend a little bit of time on that. And then our Tycon Power, which would encompass all of our POA injectors, DC converters, switches, that kind of thing. So we'll start with our Tycon Solar. Our RemotePro system is a custom system based on each individual application. There's no one system or one size fits all. So with our RemotePro, we design based on the total power draw of the application. And so we'll look at all the devices that are going to be powered. We'll look at the power draw from the manufacturer's data sheets, the voltage requirements, and then we'll also look at the peak sunlight in the specific area. For example, a system using the same equipment being installed in New York will be much different than the system being installed in Florida or California or Arizona, where maybe sunlight is much more prevalent. Our systems range from a 10-watt solar panel that would have like a 9-amp-hour battery bank in the die-cast enclosure. That would, power maybe an irrigation pump or something that's going to be a light sensor, LED lighting, something that's going to be a very low draw or for a short period of time each day. From there, we have a 30-watt array with up to 36-amp-hour battery bank in our polycarbonate enclosure. We have an 80-watt system in our steel enclosure, and that can hold up to 200 amp hours of battery bank. And then to save on shipping and to make it easier for shipping, instead of doing just one large panel, we do an array of 2 panels or 4 panels. So next we have a 160-watt array and up to a 320-watt solar array. You can see on the right with the 4-panel that we can also include our larger steel enclosure, which will hold up to 400 amp hours of battery bank. Now, all of the systems come complete with the solar panels, the enclosure, the batteries, the solar controller, and then all of the cabling and mounting hardware needed. So really all you need is just the pole to mount the equipment to and the Ethernet cable running from our solar controller or switch inside the system to your equipment for power. When we design the system, we do keep the voltage requirements in mind as well. So our systems we offer as a 12-volt DC output, 24-volt, and 48-volt output. And then if you do have different power requirements, we can also include DC converters, POE switches, that kind of thing as needed, so that we can make sure that all of the equipment can be powered from one system. On the bottom left, we have our larger systems. We have 650 watts of solar, which would be 2 of our 325-watt panels, as well as the 1,300-watt array. Now, with those systems, we do include a pole. It's about 7 feet high that would be anchored into a concrete pad. We want to keep those really low to the ground because they are fairly large. We want to make sure that they do not get blown away with heavy winds. And then last year, we released our solar trailers. This comes with 650 watts of solar. It comes with an 18-foot pneumatic mast. So all of the cabling is embedded within that pole. So there's no way that somebody can go in and cut the equipment, the power to the equipment or anything. There's no way to release that without breaking in. So we do include 720 amp hours of battery bank with that in that trailer. And right now it comes in black and orange. Black is typically for the security or for the regular customer. Orange would be for maybe construction sites. If there is a requirement to be a different color, we do offer that. We can make that available. Our system can also be fitted with our turbines. So you can see our BreezePro wind turbine on the right that'll help supplement. So that'll help give some extra autonomy to that. With the trailers, we also include one of our switches. It is our Versa switch that has a multiple voltage output. So it has a port at 24 volt PoE passive, 3 at 802.3 AT, and then one port at PoE plus. So you just mount the equipment that you're installing at the top. Everything can be powered from that switch. Let's see if can't think of any other features that I'm forgetting right now, so I'm sure there's more, and my trailer guy will yell at me, but we'll deal with that later. Our UPSPro, again, customized based on the specific application. With this, we design it based on, again, the total power draw, but also the amount of hours of backup required. So, you know, if you have a 20 watt power draw, but only need 3 hours of backup, that would be a smaller system versus maybe 8 hours or 12 hours of backup. So that's completely up to the customer based on their specific requirements. We utilize the same enclosures, so we have our smaller die cast enclosure. It's about a 10 by 8 by 3. We have a polycarbonate that is going to have up to 4 of our 9 amp hour batteries, so 36 amp hours of battery bank, and that's about a 14 by 10 by 5. Our steel enclosure, which holds up to 4 batteries with equipment, that one is about a 23 by 14 by 12, and then our large steel enclosure, which has up to 400 amp hours of battery bank, and that is a 24 by 24 by 16. It also includes in that larger steel enclosure a 1U rack mount. So quite a bit of equipment can fit in that, along with the battery bank and solar controller or battery chargers. Now, if you do have an area that has lower sunlight, you know, when we design our systems, we base it off of the peak sunlight for winter months. And that way we know if it's powered in the wintertime, it's going to power year round. But in areas that you do have less sunlight, maybe you're averaging 3 hours of peak sunlight per day, you can add the turbine to that, and that will help supplement. Now, the turbine has a controller built into the system, so you'll tie that directly into your battery bank. And when you have, you know, peak sunlight, the solar panels are has the higher voltage, so that'll charge your batteries. When the sun goes down or on cloudy days and you have good wind speeds, that will help charge the batteries. And what the controller does is it makes sure that you don't overcharge the batteries, so it sends that extra current, and that heat dissipates through the tail. It also has overspeed protection, so you make sure that it's not spinning too quickly and overspinning the whole design. That is a 12 or 24 volt, and it auto recognizes based on the battery voltage. So we don't have the 48 volt version yet, but that is something that we are working on for the future. I bring up the TPN Monitor Web 2. This is a great tool for any remote application. This allows you to remotely monitor and control your equipment, and it's accessible via web or SNMP. You have an online GUI, so you can set up the configuration as desired. It has up to 4 voltage meters, 4 current sensors, and 2 temperature sensors, as well as 4 relays. So you can set up the relays however you want. 2 are normally open, 2 normally closed, but you can set up compound logistics. So let's say there's, you know, an issue going on at your remote area that's, you know, several miles away or at a mountaintop. You can set up to receive email alerts to say battery voltage dropped or the temperature has spiked. So all of that you're able to set up and is fully manageable based on your requirements. And then you're able to also open the relays, reboot, close relays, and control all of that equipment. This is great for any remote area, whether you're using solar or not, or whether you're using batteries or not. So the device on the left is the TPN Monitor Web 2. You can power it from 9 to 72 volts DC input, or a 2448 volt passive PoE, or 802.3 AT. And then the device on the right, that is our TPN SC48-20, which is SC for solar controller, 48 volt input required, and then it's a 20 amp. Now what that is a 3-in-1. So it's our 20 amp MPPT controller but as well as it has the 7-port PoE switch, and that can be configured to 24 or 48 volt output. And then it also has a 24 or 48 volt auxiliary output as well to charge other devices. And then our TPN Monitor software is also built in. So now you have all 3 devices in one for your larger applications. Tycon Systems designs and offers a free service of designing each system. So when you have an application come up, we just ask, send us the part numbers and the quantity of the devices that you're powering and the zip code or city state or country code of where you're installing. And what we'll do is we'll look at, again, that total load in watts, and we'll look at the peak sunlight in that specific area, and then we can hit calculate, and that'll tell us everything that we need. So, and we try to make our part numbers as intuitive as possible. With this system, our RemotePro, so the part numbers would start RP for RemotePro. The next would be the enclosure type, whether it's PL, ST, STL, or AL for the different types of enclosures. The next would be the battery voltage, whether it's 12 volt, 48 volt, or 48 volt output. If there is an M to that, it means that that comes with our MPPT solar controller versus the PWM. The PWM is power width modulation. MPPT is maximum power point tracking, sorry. And the main difference is that the MPPTs do better with lower sunlight. It's more efficient to charge the batteries when you do have less sunlight. The next parts are going to be the battery capacity or the total battery bank. So this would recommend a 200 amp hour battery bank. And then the last digits are the solar panel array. So whether it's an 80, 160, 320, 650, so that would be the solar array there. So when we design a system, we obviously look at the voltage requirements as well. So that's where we decide whether we're going to go with a 12 volt or 24 volt. Common question is, how do you decide which battery voltage? Is it best to go with 48 versus 24? And honestly, the answer is to look at the majority of your equipment. If the majority of your equipment is going to be a 12 volt or 24 volt, then go with that voltage. If the majority is 48 volt, then set it at 48 volt, and then you can always convert down to 24 volts if needed. So that's the quick answer to that, but our support team helps with this system design, so you don't have to go out and do this yourself, or feel free, design it, send us an email, and say, hey, can you double check my work here, and we're happy to help with those system designs. We have many different applications in the field, as you can see here. A few of our major, people ask, well, what's a typical application? We do LED lighting, security cameras. That's a growing industry as security has become more and more of an issue. But people have maybe, parking lots already poured and they don't want to have to trench through the parking lot. Well, they can attach this to a current pole or install a pole or to a light pole. And we can do, with our UPS system, we can tap into the grid. The light pole will have power at night, so that charges the batteries, and then when the lights turn off in the morning, all of the equipment is running off of the battery bank. We do quite a bit with our wireless, so maybe you've got some backhauls going from mountaintop to mountaintop, or you have a remote tower and you're rebroadcasting that to internet to your customers. So you can use it as a complete off-grid solution or as a battery bank so that you can make sure that you're up 24 hours a day. Let's see. So now let's go on to Tycon Wireless. I'm not going to spend a lot of time. I know that there's a lot of different wireless options out there, many different manufacturers. What sets ours apart, we call it the Easy Bridge because it is a true plug and play. It's a complete bridge with A side and B side. A would be your access point, B is your client bridge, and they come pre-configured or already paired. So out of the box, you plug in the POA injector that's included. You mount and point in the direction, and now you have an automatic bridge functioning. We have in 2.4 gigahertz or 5 gig, and at 100 meg. Couple different models with that. On the left, the pictures there is our standard Easy Bridge. HD version would come with industrial POE injectors as well as 2 lengths of 75-foot Cat5 cable. The design on the right is our Easy Bridge Ultra, which can handle between 5 to 8 miles depending on the frequency. And we do have 802.11 AC coming soon. We're expecting it toward the end of this quarter, and that will allow up to 500 meg, and it's going to be a dual band 2.4 and 5 gig. So we're excited about adding that to our Easy Bridge product line. Lastly, we have Tycon Power. Now, I'm going to admit, Tycon Power tends to we're a bit skew heavy, and the reason being is that there's so many different manufacturers, and we want to be able to support all the different power requirements. With Tycon Power, we are regularly attending various trade shows, listening to our customers, getting feedback from customers. So a lot of our inspiration on products comes from you. You tell us, hey, this is something that I need, I can't find. We'll get it to our design team and see if we can implement that for you. So I really like that Tycon is friendly with the market. We listen, we get feedback, and we design accordingly. So in the Tycon Power brand, we have our POE injectors. This is where we have anything from 18 volt and 24 volt and 48 volt passive to 48 volt, 56 volt, 802.3 AF AT compliant. We have in high POE or POE plus, POE plus plus, and we just released our 10 gigabit. So we have a 24 volt passive 10 gig POE injector, as well as a POE plus at 53 volts, 30 watts, 10 gig, and POE plus plus, which is a 56 volt output up to 60 watts, and it's also 10 gigabit. We have injectors based on 2-pair or 4-pair, as well as various mid-spans and accessories to this. One being our POE extender. So, you know, the max length that you can run Cat5 cable would be up to 100 meters. So with this POE injector that'll accept 48 volt input, you can add another 100 meters to that without having an external power supply. You can put 2 of those together to give you a total of 300 meters. So if you have that long cable run and don't want to have to run a wireless bridge, which could be an option, you can plug in the POE extender. It's IP66 rated, so it is waterproof and outdoor rated. We also offer a variety of different surge protectors, both that will lock at 27 volts for those 24 volt passive devices, as well as the 48 volt 802.3 AF AT compliant. So we have many different POE converters and a lot of different accessories here. So if there is a requirement, get through StreakWave, and we're regularly working with our customers to help design the right POE injectors for that application. We offer a wide variety of POE switches as well, from 3 ports. The one on the right is our 3-port switch, which also acts as a POE extender, much like the other one that's a single port. This would be a dual port, 802.3 AT compliant. You can run 100 meters of cable, plug into the switch without requiring this outside power supply, and now you can run 2 more cables at 100 meters at 802.3 AT compliance or output. We have our simple dumb switches, just a POE output at 5-port and 8 ports, as well as fully managed switches. The designs on the left are 4 and 8 port industrial switches that also include 2 SFP ports output. We have our standard 10100 gigabit and now 10 gigabit switch that is now released, and then our BT, which will be up to 100 watts, that is releasing soon as well. I believe it's going to be available next month. Lastly, our DC converters and voltage regulators. Now, because there are so many different manufacturers and people want to mix manufacturers, which is totally fine. You might be using some different cameras with other access point manufacturers. They all have different voltage requirements, whether it's 24 volt passive for a lot of those low cost access points, to 48 volt or 802.3A FAT. And then most of the cameras are going to be a 12 volt DC out requirement or 48 volt 802.3 AT. So with that, we create a lot of different accessories to be able to have them play together. So we'll have anything from a 9 to 72 volt DC input, and then our 24, 48, 56 volts POE output. Again, we have passive or 802.3A FAT compliant, and 802.3 BT is now available. We just released our 24 to 56 volt DC converter, which would be a gigabit at 802.3 AT compliant, BT compliant, because it is a 70 watt. It'll accept anything from 10 to 60 volt DC. And then we have one with a smaller range, and I apologize, that first one is a 12. Part number is TP-DCDC-1256. The other is the 24-56, and that's going to accept an 18 to 36 volt input, and then again 56 volt out at 70 watts, and it is compliant. We make different, maybe you just need a DC to DC, so not POE. That's where our voltage regulators come in. Maybe you need something that is going to be regulated output, voltage output. That's where your voltage regulators would be very handy for that. And then again, we also have the splitters. So maybe you take you need to take that POE and split off the power and the data, or split off and you need to keep that power but maybe have another power output. We make a wide variety of POE splitters. So, you know, with any type of design or application, you can always come to us and say, you know, this is my input voltage, this is what I require, and then we can point in the right direction of the part numbers or options that we have available, whether you need a 10100 output or a gigabit or now 10 gigabit. So that's the breakdown of our products and our brands. We have a phenomenal support team that is able to help in the system designs or in product recommendations, as well as, you know, after support if you have any questions on our products, or maybe you've done a design and you're installing and maybe you have a question on wiring. We have a team that's available via phone, email, or chat, and we're always willing and ready to help with any applications. All of our equipment is warranted. Our wireless is warranted for up to 2 years, and then the rest of our equipment is a 3-year warranty. So we're always willing to and trying to help our customers as best as possible. So hopefully that helped you a little bit understand a little bit more about Tycon Systems. Angela, do you have any questions that popped up for me?
I do. So get ready for some answers here. All right. So first question I got, they're asking, any plans to add a login page to the TPDIN Monitor Web 2E?
So adding a login page, that is definitely something that I don't know off the top of my head. I know that our team is constantly designing based on the requests from our customers. So that is something that I will get and make sure that is going to be on our next rev or next software update. I do know that our login page is fully customizable. So whether you need to add your own logo or change the color scheme, all of that is customizable. So whether it's having a separate login page, I will bring that up to our team and make sure that is something that they can add to the next version. One thing I failed to mention is that our TPN monitor, you can access through your desktop, or we have a free app that you can download through iTunes or Google Play, and you can have all of your TPN monitors logged into there, so you can easily scroll through and make any changes that you need from your cell phone. So, but thank you for the suggestion. I will make sure that we can get that in.
All right, perfect. Next question: what is the typical battery life before you need to replace them?
That's a great question. Now, when we design the systems, we want to make sure that we are not over discharging the batteries. And so when we design, we have a buffer in place so that the system will prevent the over discharge. And if you're able to continually keep the batteries maintained, and there's not a lot of maintenance that's required, the solar controller will do all of the maintenance for you. But these batteries should last you 5 years. So.
Okay, thank you. Next question: are there any issues going from 802.3 BT to 802.3 AF, or from 8-wire to 4-wire power?
There's not. So let's tackle the first one. So all of them are backwards compatible. So the 802.3 AF is just the standard of output power. So, that has a requirement of, I believe it's 16 watts. 802.3 AT, I believe, is 30 watts, and then BT is up to 90 watts. Now, and then POE Plus obviously would be 60 watts. Well, maybe that's not obvious, but so all of those. So if you have a device that requires, maybe it's a 10 watt, and it would be considered 802.3 AF, but you have an AT power injector, that's not going to harm. It's not going to send that extra power because it's not required. So you're safe. They're all backwards compatible. Now, I forgot the second part of the question. Can you remind me?
Yeah. Or from 8-wire power to 4-wire power.
Okay, so that's not going to be an issue either. So with typically your standard POE is going to be 2 pair, meaning because in a standard Cat5 cable there's going to be 8 wires. Of that, 2 pair are going to be data, 2 pair are going to be power. Now with the higher requirements from a lot of the devices, the newer devices, they would require power on all 4 pair. I believe you will not want to go down and power the devices, because that would be, I hate to answer that because I'm not 100% sure. If you would like, whoever asked that question, that's a good one, would you mind sending an email to our support team? Just send it to support@tyconsystems.com, and we'll make sure to get the right answer to you. And then we can also update Angela so she can add that on to the question and answer when it's posted to YouTube. So that one I'd be afraid to answer because I'm not 100% sure.
All right, sounds good. Next question. They're asking that they didn't hear anything about the weather station. Will Tycon still sell and support it?
Absolutely, yeah. So we still have our weather station. It's the TP3000, and you can set it up in any environment. It'll have your rain gauges, your wind speeds, all the different features, barometric pressures, all of that. So yes, that is still part of our offering, and we will continue to support.
Okay. How are the solar controllers designed to handle AC input in addition to a solar input and failover between the two?
So typically when you have a UPS system, we provide the AC power plug. So you would plug that into your power source, your typical AC power, and then from our power supply or battery charger, depending on the type of system, we can go into our MPPT solar controller. And what the solar controller does, it'll take the power supply will convert from AC power to DC power, and that'll input into your controller, and then from there you have your load going to your switch or devices. Now, most equipment is DC powered. What I should say, most of the cameras and access points, LED lighting, the pumps, or like the irrigation pumps, the majority of those devices are DC power. So once we're at DC, we want to stay at DC because it's more efficient. Now, if you did have a sensor or something that did require AC power, then we would need to add our inverter. And an inverter will take that DC power, invert to AC power, so you can have your standard power plug. But take a lot of for example, a lot of the different access points or the wireless radios. They include a POA injector, which has your AC power cord and then your 24-volt passive injector. You can discard that because you no longer need that AC converter. You have DC power coming from the solar controller or the battery charger, and now you can just add either a switch or DC converter to stay in DC. It's much more efficient.
Okay. Someone else is asking, if they get a RemotePro system and they want to add equipment to it in a few months, what should they do?
The best thing to do is if you can plan ahead, that's great. We have people come to us and say, hey, I want 2 cameras, but I'll probably add a third later. I would go ahead and design it with the third camera in mind. If not, and if that's something where you have, let's just say, that access point and 2 cameras, and then your customer comes back to you and he says, I need another access point. Well, you can, some of our systems, because we have the solar panels, the 80 watts, they are modular. So bring it back to our design team and say, this is the system I have. This is the equipment that I'm running off of it, and this is what I'd like to add. Our design team can look at that and see, yep, you'll need an extra solar panel, and then we have a mount that can mount either 2 or 4 panels. Or we say, we're going to have to do another array. Or you can always add onto a separate RemotePro system and then chain those in together. So there's a lot of different options when you're adding, whether it's extra battery bank to give you more autonomy, or adding solar panels, or maybe you add the Breeze Pro, our wind turbine, because you maybe just need a little extra power, and that'll help supplement in those winter months. So there's a lot of different things that they can do. My recommendation, bring it to our design team, and that way we can make sure that you have the complete system that you need.
Great. Next question. Will Tycon start making vertical wind turbines anytime soon?
That is not in our future right now. No. Right now we have the horizontal offering, and we don't have any plans, but who knows? That could be something on our roadmap down the road, but for now we're just going to stick with the one that we have.
Okay. Next question. If a customer wants a RemotePro system but wants to remove or customize the unit at the time of purchase, can you customize systems, and how do we order these?
Absolutely, 100%. So we can design the system and I can never say this enough, but it's based on the customer's application. For example, our MPPT controllers. Well, let me back up one step. Our systems come with AGM batteries. Maybe a customer wants to use lithium batteries and they have a local source. We do not right now provide lithium batteries. However, our MPPT controllers can be used whether it's AGM or lead acid lithium batteries. So if they decide that they want to buy their own batteries, we can design a custom kit that would be everything minus the batteries. And so we would get with StreakWave, provide the cost and the part number for that, and then they'd be able to quote accordingly. So all of our systems are customizable based on your specific requirements. So you just get it to our design team and say, I've already got my enclosure. I want to do just the system minus the enclosure because I'm putting it in a shed instead. We can do that.
Okay, great. Going back to the question with the controllers, they wanted to just elaborate a little bit more. How do the controllers handle AC or solar input for charging the batteries or powering the 12, 24 voltage equipment connected to the output of the controllers?
So the controller manages that for us. So it'll accept the DC input. So as I mentioned, maybe you have the AC power, right? So you've got a site that has AC power. You're using a battery backup, or you want to have a battery backup with solar, because all of our UPS systems are solar ready. So if you decide, hey, I want to have extra autonomy, you can add a solar kit to that. So what the solar controller does is it'll accept that input, and then you regulate the output. So it'll accept the AC power through that power supply, and then you can connect to a 12 volt or 48 volt, or I guess I skipped 24 volt battery bank, and that'll recognize the battery input and then convert to your required load output. So the solar controller, the MPPTs, do all of the brains with that. That is our intermediary between the solar, the batteries, the AC, all of that, and the load output.
All right, awesome. Looks like those are all the questions. I don't see any more coming through. I want to thank everyone that did ask a question. And if you do have any questions after the presentation, please don't hesitate to reach out to Streetwave and Tycon, and we'll definitely get those questions answered for you guys. The webinar has been recorded, and so we will go ahead and send it out to everybody. Thank you, Seth, for taking the time and doing the presentation. I'm sure we'll be doing more Tycon webinars here in the near future. Was there anything else that you wanted to add before we end the presentation?
No, I'm just grateful for the opportunity. So thanks so much, Angela, and let us know what we can do to help.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.